go through now.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Sorry for the delay. There are a few technical difficulties, but we are all here now, so let's get started. Reuben, can you tell us about FIRO and what the project is exactly and what is the vision behind the project?
Right. So FIRO was formerly known as Zcoin. We started in 2016, and I guess the basic idea is that we feel that if we are to be cryptocurrencies that's meant to be used as a store of value or medium of transfer, you really need to have privacy. And we feel that like Bitcoin and all this other, they're really good innovations, but I think it's clear that no meaningful privacy technologies will be built because of certain viewpoints that the Bitcoin core developers have. So here we are, we're building a technology that allows people to destroy their coins and to redeem them for brand new ones with no previous transaction history, because the idea is that you want to have cryptocurrency that functions like cash. So when I pass you like a dollar note or whatever, like physical cash, you don't really know where it's been. And that's the kind of same sort of guarantees that we want to provide with cryptocurrencies as well. So yeah, we have our own privacy protocol called Lelantis, and I guess we can talk about that later. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much for that. Why did you guys decide to rebrand? Why the name FIRO?
Right. So, I mean, that's a great question. It's actually been quite a contentious one. And because, we were Zcoin in 2016, and Zcoin was named because the first privacy protocol that we use is called ZeroCoin. But we no longer use ZeroCoin. We have transitioned out several times out. So, first of all, we don't use the ZeroCoin protocol anymore. So there's not really a good reason to have the word Zcoin. And I think more importantly, we were thinking like, where do we want to see ourselves, right? We want to see ourselves as a real currency, not just a cryptocurrency, but a currency that is used day to day. And yes, it may seem that we're aiming really high, but you have to aim high. And if you think about what traditional currencies are called, like the euro, the peso, or they're all very easy to say. They are not like Zcoin or something like that. So if we want to be treated like a currency, we need to sound like a currency. I mean, in retrospect, I think Bitcoin is a horrible name. I mean, still sounds like it still sounds like coin money for many people, and it's only because it's gained such a recognition that we accept it as thing. But if we could start again, I don't think Bitcoin is the best name. And I guess one of the other major concerns is that we are a privacy coin. We started around the same time as Zcash, and Zcash had very prominent VC investors, very very prominent people. So it tends to be that even after 4 years of doing very innovative work that had nothing to do with Zcash, we constantly were confused for Zcash. Some of our technical developments, like Lelantis, people said it was a Zcash technology. And that was kind of frustrating for us because, we're doing really interesting work. We don't require a trusted setup. We're doing our own, privacy implementation, and yet people still think that we are a Zcash fork or something else, which couldn't be further from the truth. So I think those are the main reasons why we really decided to rebrand, because although we have brand recognition within our current community, we are thinking that, well, if someone new comes into FIRO, what is the initial what is the initial impression that they're gonna get? And we really, really want to make sure that we have our best foot forward when people don't just judge us just because of a name. Yeah.
Sure, that's an excellent point, Reuben. Tell me a little bit more about the governance process of FIRO.
Sure. So right now, I mean, although we do have a masternode system, we don't utilize the way that in Dash they have like one masternode, one vote, and the main reason is that we don't want basically to create a plutocracy where the rich can say anything they want at no cost, right? That means they are the ones that steer the ship. And one of the problems is that there's this mistaken assumption that the people with the most coins will vote for the best for the project. Because, obviously, if I hold a lot of the coin, I want the best for the project. But actually, it seems that, from what we've seen on other projects, the masternodes will vote what's best for themselves, which may not be the best for the project as a whole. For example, in Dash, like, reduce the miner subsidy and give more to the masternodes. It's kind of geared towards, like, profiting a few people who can afford those masternodes. So right now, we don't have a formal governance process. It's currently done through a lot of community consultations. We have monthly community meetings. We have a forum and several, I would informal posts as a sort of a gauge of community sentiment. But once we finish rolling out Lelantis and whatnot, we do have certain plans on how we would want to implement governance. For example, maybe locking a certain amount on coins for several years and then you get voting rights for that. That's still in the discussion phase, so I would say we don't have a formalized governance process, but it's more through seeking community consensus, going through the community meetings and making sure that we're not tone deaf to the needs of our community, because if we do something that the community is not happy about, then our coins are also worthless as well. Yeah.
Got it. What other roles do these master nodes play besides from helping to verify the validity of these transactions?
Right. So upcoming, we actually have the code ready. We have something called chain locks, right? And one of the really important things that differentiates, FIRO from other projects is that we want to be mineable by commodity hardware. And we've actually invested a lot of research into doing this. We even have our own, a very unique mining algorithm called MTP that makes it hard for, like a ASICs to be created for it. Now, the problem with being able to be mined by GPUs is that GPUs don't have that same sort of loyalty as an ASIC, right? Because an ASIC, like if you mine Bitcoin, the only purpose of the ASIC is to mine Bitcoin. So if I hurt Bitcoin, then I hurt my own investment in the machine. The machine is worthless if I hurt Bitcoin. GPUs are not subject to the same sort of restriction where I can attack a coin, the coin just dies, I still retain the value of my graphics card, right? And therefore, 51% attacks are a really, really real threat. I mean, we've seen it happen with Grin, we've seen it happen with Beam, we have seen it happen in many, many other smaller proof of work coins. And that's because, hash rate is rentable. So how do we allow the great distribution effects of GPUs and proof of work while retaining security? And masternodes can actually do this by using something called chain locks. And what happens then is that the masternodes act as a secondary validation layer, so that it will not set any sort of conflicting viewpoint from what the masternode sees. So that means they wouldn't be long reorganizations of the chain. So that means if you want to take control of the chain, you both need to take control of the hash rate and a significant proportion of the masternode. So it's a nice hybrid system that kind of secures the network, and at the same time, provides incentivized infrastructure. That means, we can have like, more heavy duty private transactions, that because the majority of the nodes are being paid to do so, they can upgrade their hardware to do it. And I guess the other thing that will be coming soon is also instant transactions, where you can have almost like instant finality within a few seconds, and that's also done by the master nodes. Yeah.
Got it. How are you different and maybe more advantageous as compared to your competitors like Monero or Zcash?
Right, sure. I think that's a really good question. Well, with Monero, I mean, like, they have really like led the way. I think they were one of the first real privacy coins, and they have achieved amazing adoption. But personally, I do feel that the technology is getting a bit long in the tooth. For example, like the way Monero works is that when I do a transaction, I am probably taking 10 other possible outputs as my plausible inputs. So what that means is kind of like an easy way that I like to kind of describe it, which is rather crude, is that if I go into the lift and I wanted to let out a fart, I drag 10 other people into the lift with me so that when I let it out, it's like, oh yeah, it could be one of these 11 people, right? So that's like kind of like hiding in the crowd. Uh, and those sort of mechanisms kind of fall apart when you do repeated transactions. Now, when you take a look at what we are doing with Lelantis, the difference is that when we go into the lift, we let out a fart. We can make the fart disappear, but we can choose when it should reappear anytime in the future. So what that means is that your plausible deniability is not just the people in the lift with you, but with every single person that has ever gone into the lift. So that anonymity is a lot better. And, on a technical level, we have an anonymity set of around 64,000 versus like 11 in Monero. With Zcash, they do have very advanced technologies, especially when they're using ZK snarks, but it comes with a lot of risks. They have something called a trusted setup, where you kind of need to trust that certain initial parameters were destroyed. So kind of a bit like Lord of the Rings, where you kind of destroy the master ring to make sure there's no back door, right? And sure, people say that, yeah, that's fine. They probably destroyed it correctly. Well, the first iteration, Sprout actually did have a vulnerability in that. And I guess the whole idea is not only because of the trusted setup, the ZK Snaps technology is so complex that only a handful of people in the world, I would say like, not more than 3 digits or even less, would actually really, really understand, like maybe even 100 people, or less than 100 people really get the guts of what ZK Snaps is. And that's a real problem because it becomes a bit like security through obscurity. You have something so complex that only a small group of people can validate. You have a trusted setup that you have to trust that was done correctly. It's kind of against the spirit of blockchain, which is, don't trust, verify. And if you can't verify, it becomes kind of a bit like, magic technology and stuff. So although they have really great technology, I would say Lelantis offers very high practical privacy without trusted setup, using very simple constructions that are a lot easier to understand and implement. And we aren't taking, any sort of new mathematical assumptions. So I think that's a clear benefit. It remains to be seen, I guess, like, the test of time. But I do think that, there is value right now in pursuing several different privacy protocols, because if one collapses, at least there are alternatives. So I think it's really important to have diversity in the privacy space. Yeah.
Well, in 2015, FIRO conducted the world's first party elections for the Thailand Democrat Party. Will FIRO be used for elections again?
Yeah, so although there was some interest, I mean, I think it was more of like a showcase of, FIRO's ability to do it. And although there was interest by the Thai Democrat Party to actually do it again, currently, I don't know if you know, but the Thai political situation is a bit difficult right now, just to put it this way. So I don't think it's at the top of their priority list. But I don't think it's something that may happen again. But we wouldn't dare to promise like when it's going to happen, because there's just so many factors involved there. Yeah.
What are some of the major milestones you guys have hit so far, and what makes these milestones important?
Well, of course, I think the Thai Democrat Party was a huge milestone. I mean, like, it's the first wide-scale blockchain election of any kind in the world with over 127,000 people. And I would say, I really, although, like, Lelantis is being launched in, activating in mid-January, I do think that's a really, really huge milestone because it actually opens a whole new family of privacy protocols. Because like previously, all we had was like, crappy coin join, that Bitcoin and Dash uses, a bit of Nimble which was shown not to be that private after all. We have Ring CT done by Monero and ZK Snaps, and that was it. Everything else was just like variations of this and that. There wasn't any real alternative. Lelantis actually opens up a whole new cryptographic primitive called one out of many proofs that is now, because of our work, is now gaining a lot of traction. So even Monero, like, their new so-called privacy protocol that's in the proposal stage, Triptych, was actually inspired by our work. We presented a MoneroCon. They really liked the work. They modify it to fit into their, Ring CT model. So Triptych actually uses many of the same ideas that Lelantis does, of course, implemented in a different way. And even Beam has also taken our technology and also modified it to work within the Mimblewimble protocol. So I do think that this, Lelantis is probably the most major milestone, that FIRO has ever achieved, because it's not only independent development, but it is basically really opening a real new, like, paradigm of private. I hate using the word, but it is really a new paradigm in privacy protocols. And I think that really bodes well for the whole space as a whole. And yeah, I think those are the main contributions. I mean, of course, we use ZeroCoin. We were the first project to use it, which was, I think, at one point in time, one of the most used privacy protocols ever. But because we also found a critical vulnerability, we disclosed it to all the projects. I mean, although it was negative news, I think we had a really big impact in saving many other projects from getting hacked. So we're personally quite proud of that. Yeah.
Amazing. Tell me.
Sorry, plans for what? Q1 and Q2, is that?
Tell me what.
I don't know, you say that I couldn't hear. Plans for, sorry?
What are your plans for DeFi?
Oh, plans for DeFi, right. So the DeFi, right now, we don't believe in building a whole entire DeFi ecosystem on FIRO, because we feel that it would distract from our main goal as being a privacy, currency. And obviously, when you start adding smart contract capability to a particular, coin, it gets really complex, and it increases the attack surface a lot. So rather than creating it ourselves, we decided, okay, how can we plug into where all the DeFi is happening right now, right? I mean, we are not intending to be a Ethereum killer, and probably is the wrong thing to target that, but we want to make sure that FIRO can participate in the DeFi ecosystem. So right now, we do have already sort of a wrapped version of FIRO. Well, what that means is that a custodian holds certain master nodes within it, and this is done by Stakehound. So this is held by a institutional custodian, and what they do is then kind of issue a stake FIRO token, which is an ERC20 token. And this is quite interesting because it works like wrapped Bitcoin, it works like USDT, and you can basically, use it in all the DeFi ecosystems. Like right now, you can buy ST FIRO on Uniswap, right? And basically you have a great usable DEX, which is really important. And soon, hopefully, we would have loan platforms and other people that want to integrate this. So we offer the ability for users to be able to use FIRO in the DeFi ecosystem without compromising on our values right now. Of course, we are also additionally building trustless bridges so that people can easily convert from SD FIRO, which is the ERC20 token version, back into the native token. And what that means is that, you know, you don't need KYC and everything. You just swap it and bam, you know, you get back your native FIRO. So you want to do your DeFi stuff, you go into the DeFi ecosystem. You don't want to do it anymore, you can swap back into the native format and get all the privacy benefits. Now, the only other thing that we would be doing on the DeFi space is that we do have an upcoming tokenization layer called Elysium, which allows people to issue their own assets and still enjoy all the privacy features of FIRO. So that means, like, you know, if I want to issue like a USDT on FIRO, I get all the Lelantus and Dandelion privacy technologies all built in, and we think that's potentially very powerful. So that's our current viewpoint on DeFi right now. Yeah.
Sounds like you're Can you talk about your future 2021?
Right. So in 2021, I think it's going to be a really important year for us. I mean, first of all, you know, I guess it's the first year as FIRO with our new brand, but it would also mean Lelantus is activating on the 12th of 13th of January. And that actually means the first time that, first of all, you know, we have our own, like, you know, home-built privacy protocol. And not only that, we are going by a privacy by default model. So we hopefully that all our official wallets would use Lelantus transactions by default. And that's really, really powerful. We are taking a different approach where the privacy is not mandatory, but is by default. That means the wallet will use private transactions by default, but to make sure we maintain exchange compatibility, and especially with all this, you know, AML, KYC additional requirements, exchanges can still use the transparent transactions without any issues. So that's a major milestone. The other thing is that we are really pushing for ease of use, you know, because like right now you can have all this fancy privacy technology, but if it's hard to use, it's hard to sync, you know, not everyone wants to maintain like a full node wallet. And we're really, really focusing on like the mobile experience, you know, the desktop wallet, instant sync, you know, wallets that require minimal trust. So we're really, and we're also pushing an upgraded version of Lelantus, which would actually introduce a new type of addressing structure, kind of like shielded addresses, and that will kind of sort of begin our move into mandatory privacy. So I think, like, you know, 2021 is going to be a really big year for us. We even have a plan, proof of work change, possibly to progressive prop POW. And that will be also really big for miners as well. Yeah.
Amazing. So can you tell me, maybe if we're shifting a little bit, I want to shift to privacy coins. What do you think about the recent delisting of privacy coins that have happened on a lot of exchanges?
Right. I think that's an excellent topic. And as you can see, actually, like, you know, delisting of privacy coins is a kind of like a symptom of a bigger problem. We have seen a lot of poorly thought out crypto regulation. Like even recently, Mnuchin, you know, was like saying that, oh, you know, when you withdraw from a exchange address, that wallet that you withdraw to has to be KYC as well, which has really little sense because, you know, what are you actually achieving there, right? But a lot of the delistings are actually, first of all, misguided because there is nothing in the law that says that you kind of need to delist privacy coins. The law doesn't prevent privacy coins. And if you take a look at what a lot of these countries or exchanges are saying, they cite the FATF travel rule. And actually, the FATF travel rule has nothing against privacy coins. All they're saying is that when an exchange, you know, or custodian sends from one exchange to another custodian or another exchange, they need to be able to attach who these funds came from. And this is the same rule that applies to cash. The FATF rule, travel rule, applies to cash, private transactions. There's no difference because exchanges know who you are. So even if you're using FIRO, even if you're using any other privacy coin, when they are sending it on behalf of you to someone else, of course they know where it came from. So I think it's a very big misunderstanding of this. And even when I spoke to some of the Netherlands exchanges, which also recently delisted us, they were saying, "Oh, we cannot identify the receiver or sender." I'm like, the address that you asked me to deposit to is KYC. So, if I'm taking responsibility of that, why would you say you not know where these funds come from? You can always, subject me to additional queries to ask me where these funds are from. And these are standard procedures in the traditional banking finance, traditional finance. Why can't this be applied to privacy coins as well? And this is mainly because blockchain analysis companies have been, making lots of money telling people that, oh yeah, to do AML KYC, you need to have blockchain analysis. If you can't do blockchain analysis, then you can't list them, which is total rubbish because there are many, many other ways that actually allow people to do AML KYC and a risk-based approach without blockchain analysis tools. Blockchain analysis tool is just a tool. You have many, many other tools at your disposal. So hopefully, we're working out with this group called Comply First, where we're coming up with compliance briefs so that people, like hopefully regulators, will read it and understand that, okay, how can privacy coins, survive or rather like comply with regulations without compromising on our values in protecting privacy. Yeah.
Right. Do you think that a lot more privacy coins are going to come out in the near future?
I actually think, I hope so, but I haven't seen anything that seems to have caught my eye. I mean, very few are actually building new privacy protocols. Mainly, they're just implementing someone else's work, like using Zcash technology, using Monero's technology, or using our technology, or Mimblewimble stuff. I do hope there are some very interesting new cryptographic protocols that are still kind of newish that hasn't really come to light. This is also something we're exploring, but I think right now it would be really weird to see new privacy coins launch purely because privacy coins haven't been hot in the past 1 or 2 years. But I do believe that once adoption of cryptocurrencies as a whole picks up, not just for speculation, and you actually already feeling it now, like with Bitcoin, with this increased regulation, maybe you even like regulation of self-custody, right? And when that starts going across, becoming too much, privacy coins are probably the only way that you can actually protect, your liberty, your freedom to transact, your freedom to hold a cryptocurrency, and hopefully then it becomes a lot more important rather than just a side feature. Yeah.
Thanks. Shifting to community, how have you seen your community evolve over the past few years?
Right. So I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, we first started out, as a really, I guess it was kind of like homegrown. It was a hobby project, right? We only had one developer. And, this was back then in the altcoin days where all you just needed to do was change a little thing from Bitcoin Core and just call it a new altcoin, right? And now it's not just about the community, it's also the team. We have like a cryptographer on board, professional full-time programmers on board, and the community as well. We have grown. I would say there are a core group of people that have grown to really, really embrace and also step up and what we're doing. Many of us have kind of grown in the industry together. So, many of these people like to give back and rather than just like, oh yeah, this is a hobby project. Now this is starting to be something really serious. Obviously, all altcoins, I mean, being realistic here in the past, 2 or 3 years hasn't been kind to altcoins, especially privacy coins. But and we have seen, there's been, I guess there's been a small like there hasn't been that crazy FOMO that we've seen, maybe in 2017 or so. So I do think that right now, there'll be a lot of unhappy people that may not be so happy about the price. I think anyone's in the altcoin would have experienced this right now. But I do think we are also seeing that the people that have remained are really the quality community people. They are not only just willing to put in the money, investing is great, but at the same time to realize that, hey, this project is not just the teams, it's everyone's, and they all contribute their time, their efforts to write stuff, to evangelize, and I think that's really promising, and hopefully we'll see more of that, especially next year. Yeah.
Great. And as the last question, before you share with us your last thoughts, can you tell me, if I'm a community member and a fan of FIRO, how can I help the project's growth, and what kind of role does community play in the ecosystem of FIRO?
I think this is a great question, because there's often been, we are at a stage that, although the core team does receive a development reward, that doesn't mean that everything is the team's responsibility, right? The team's responsibility is to, do good work to develop the project, the technical side, the back end, and, to steer the general direction. But at the end of the day, we are not an ICO, we don't have like millions of dollars there. So it does mean that the community has to really step up to say that, look, we don't have millions of dollars to pay for exchange listings. We don't have millions of dollars to pay for integrations or to print money out of thin air to give to people. This is a coin that is owned just as much by you guys, by the community, right? Because everyone is fairly distributed. It's GPU mine. You can buy from an exchange. There's no secret allocation that we keep for ourselves, right? So I do think that the community, I think the best way to do is that, first of all, understand our technology, not just look at the price, understand what we're building, what are the values that we're building, and then really, really just help evangelize, explain to people, hold up your own community meetups. And, if you want to hold your own events or you want to hold your own stuff, there are funds available for this. Just ask, and, we will be happy to contribute a little bit. But I do think that the community has to kind of band together, that this project is not just, the core teams, right? I mean, all it's everybody's, right? I also don't want to be the one leading it forever, right? It has to be given back to the community eventually, and that's for it to survive, because it can't be centered around one person. And I think that's I think would be a huge step forward, especially rather than me calling all the shots and stuff like that. So if people want to contribute, I think the best way to come in, drop by our Telegram channel at FIRO Project, go to our forums, come for our community meetings and weigh in with your ideas. We really want to hear from you, and that would be a great start. And if you love us, then great. Then evangelize, tell us, educate people about what we're stepping on, and what we're trying to build, and hopefully that will work. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Reuben. A huge thank you to all over 800 of you who have joined us to watch our AMA. Yes. Are there any last words that you would like to leave our audience with, Reuben?
Well, I see a lot of questions in the chat that I would have liked to answer. And I don't know if we have enough time. Oh, sorry?
I didn't see any of the questions. I guess it's not coming up on my screen. Feel free to answer some of the questions for sure.
Yeah, how much time do we have? I just want to make sure that we don't overrun.
I think then people get a little bit impatient, but definitely take a few questions. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so I mean, the first thing is, what's the difference between FIRO and Verge? I don't really know much about Encash, but Verge, I mean, unfortunately, Verge doesn't have any blockchain privacy protocol. Everything is just like Bitcoin, so I would call it a pseudo privacy coin. You can ask any expert on this. The only people that would call Verge a privacy coin are Verge themselves. but it is no more private than Bitcoin, or maybe even worse. So because not as many people use it, so I do think Verge does a great disservice to what privacy coins are doing, because they don't have on-chain blockchain privacy protocols. The other thing is that I saw earlier was that there was Zcoin or FIRO used to has suffered several vulnerabilities in the past. How are we hoping to mitigate that? So with Lelantis, we have had, this is the first time that we were able to get like a really top quality audit. So we used Trail of Bits, which audited our cryptographic library, and we also did ABDK Consulting, which is Dmitry Kofratovich, is a very world-renowned cryptographer, to also audit the cryptography of Lelantis. Obviously, there's no guarantees. Audits are, I guess, a very good way to make sure that we don't make mistakes, but they're not 100%. But we are taking, first of all, we were very happy because the audits were raised from the community. That means it was money that we could not afford. It was like, 30,000-40,000 US dollars. And the community came in and donated until we had enough to pay for the audit. So that was really amazing. And on top of that, we also have, for a temporary period, we do have an emergency switch that is held by the core developers that has a fixed validity period of 1 year, so that if there are any problems, we can turn off that feature just to stop any attack. This is just as a transitioning period, and it only has a fixed validity of 1 year. After that, it's all into the wild. I do think that we're taking, the most precautions that we've ever had, and I'm really confident that this is probably like the best foot forward. Obviously, as if our funds permitting, we would like additional audits, but I do think that we've taken at least our due diligence there. So yeah, I think there's some other questions. So you used to be higher in the coin market cap list in the top 100. Now lots of projects have been pushed up because of DeFi. What do you intend to do to get back in? I think this is a great question, because I don't think it means that we should pivot and let's join into the DeFi bandwagon, right? And you have to realize that a lot of these things, they are fads. DeFi is not a fad, but the general movement of the market, today is privacy coins, tomorrow is DeFi, next is the altcoins, next is the meme coins, the Doge coins, and the whatnot, right? And I do feel that right now, privacy coins have taken a back seat, but I do feel that, our time is going to come soon. And I do feel that if mainstream adoption is going to be happening, privacy is really, really one of the most important things to solve. Maybe even more so than scalability, because who's going to actually transact on the chain and do real business if it exposes them to, potential attacks? Just take a look at Ledger, right? Their recent attacks have exposed so many people, and now those addresses are tainted forever. So I do think there is a real need for privacy, and hopefully the market realizes that. But yeah, I think that's the best that we can.
And companies don't necessarily want their transactions to be public, because then their competitors can come and see what they're doing and all that sort of stuff. It's not just about taxes and all of that. It's also about privacy being important.
I think one of a very easy hypothetical example, okay, I have 100 Bitcoin in a particular address, right? And I want to buy something, and the person that receives that money immediately knows that I have 100 Bitcoin and potentially can track it back to see where I got it from, and if I'm using it to pay other people, they know there's this monthly payment that goes out. Why should I be giving that information to someone that I paid? That really is against not just blockchain, but just general types of privacy, right? I think people don't realize how bad an issue it is, because they don't feel the blockchain analysis companies yet. But in a world where cryptocurrencies are mainstream and everyone's using it to transact, every single merchant is going to try to get as much data from the customers from payments. And I really feel that without privacy, or even just as a check and balance between the state and the citizen. Privacy is really, really important because now we see the rise of CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, right? Which may seem like, oh yeah, it's so great, we're going cashless. But what they don't realize, it also means that the government can cut you off from your finances, especially if the rule, like, if you do something wrong, they don't like what you do, cut you off from your finances, and that can be very, very arbitrary. So that's really dangerous. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think probably answered most of the questions. The ones in Chinese, unfortunately, I can't read, but everyone's welcome to come into our Telegram channel at FIRO Project, and on Twitter we are also, I think we have FIRO.org. But please just drop by. And for the Chinese, we do have a WeChat group. So just come into the Telegram channel and we'll get someone to invite you into the WeChat group. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Reuben, for spending the time. And I am sorry for the technical difficulties.
Thanks so much. I'm glad it happened. Yeah.
Thanks to all 1,200 of you for joining us and listening to me and Reuben especially. Yeah, go head over. I think FIRO has a lot to offer, and I'm really glad that it's listed on Gate.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.